This is the second of the 3 twin mill builds I'm planning to do. This one is a Redline conversion of the twin mill 2. You see the one I have there is pretty well play worn. It could be in a lot worse shape. But those tampos, those have gotta go. And those wheels, yeah, this needs to be a Redline. So let's have at it. Went through and drilled it out. It has a plastic base, metal body. It doesn't have a clear windshield. It's a dark plastic, as you'll see here in a second, plastic windshield. It's not transparent. The motor, the way that, and you'll see here in a second, the way it fits in there, the way the casting was made, those pieces fit in really tightly. And I had a heck of a time popping them out. So one of the first things I do when I go to clean this casting up and filing it is I open it up a little bit more around those engine openings, just so those pieces, rather than popping in so snugly, will pretty much just drop in. I was worried that when I'd go to reassemble it, I obviously have to re-chrome those 2 plastic engine pieces. And I was concerned that not only would I scratch those up when I went to put them in, but I also could damage the paint. And consistent with the previous twin mill that I did, I am going with the red metal cast paint on this and the Minwax clear coat, but we'll get to that later. Prior to that, it's just a lot of cleanup. Also, I did go with self-tapping screws on this one. Those just worked out a little bit better in this particular build. Once the body had been cleaned up, I hit it with primer, using the approach that I mentioned before was suggested by Time Rider, of hitting it with primer and then sanding all of that down to smooth out the body. The primer reveals what areas are still rough. And so in effect, you're just trying to sand all of the primer away. Fortunately, this casting doesn't have a lot of detail on it. There are no like door handles or tail lights or any of those real world features like that. But this approach works pretty well. This is one of the first times I've tried this. And I'm very pleased with how this approach works. It does really show you the areas you still need to work on the casting. And interestingly, you'll see that I'm doing this in a kind of a Rubbermaid tub. And that I picked up, I went back and I was watching a lot of the old bare metal HW videos. the ones I watched when I first started this. And I saw how he was doing a lot of sanding inside a tub. And I thought, man, that's a brilliant idea too. I'm not sure why it's taken me so long to catch on to some of these things, but yeah, my hands got a little dirty there. And here it is after polishing. I took it out with the Dremel tool and just polished the heck out of it. That worked pretty well. There are still some areas on the casting that aren't perfect, but I'm pretty pleased. As I mentioned before, the windshield on this does leave a lot to be desired, so all I was looking to do was smooth it out and get it to an acceptable look, because it was play-worn, and again, it's not a transparent windshield. It's just solid plastic. And it's that weird fibery plastic. I think I heard Danny mention that on Danny's Diecast Disasters. And it was like the perfect terminology for it. And then it's gauzy, gauzy, gauzy time. Yes, for those of you still playing the gauzy drinking game, where every time you hear the word gauzy, you take a shot of your favorite beverage. This one's for you. So dunked it in the gauzy because I did want it to have a nice shiny look. The gauzy does put a thick coat on it. It's a much thicker coat than, say, the Pledge would result in. And I thought this one in particular needed that. So there's the top of the gauzy jar. And for those of you who have been jonesing for your gauzy fix in some of the recent builds, I hope this gets you even now. Cover that up so it doesn't get any fuzz on it. And set it aside and let it dry on its own. I did hit the engine chunks here. You can see some of the worn spots. I used the 2mm Molotow chrome pin. Again, I find the 2mm version of the pin to be much easier to work with. For me, the 1mm runs. It's like it's either all of the paint's coming out or virtually none. So it seems to work best. And then in the previous build, I had mentioned how I printed up some of these bearings. And I redesigned the bearings from the last time I did them because I was having a bit of a problem with the hole in the bearings. And not to say that it's perfect now, but this batch that I actually printed the morning of me assembling this one here, I ended up printing them also on supports, with one support under each one to actually let the bearing drain when it was doing the resin printing. And that did help. It's a very thin hole now through that bearing. I did still need to drill it out, but it was much easier to drill also with that hole all the way through the bearing. So then it's just a matter of sizing it up, crimping the end, and lo and behold, you got axles. Then all you need are the bearing wheels. You do that for the other axle as well. There you can see I've done both of them at this point. And then I just have some of the bearing wheels I ended up getting from the Redline shop in this case. Use that little tool that they have to press the bearing into the wheel. And honestly, it couldn't be any easier than that. I'm really looking forward to doing more of these Redline conversions and restorations for that matter, where the axles are screwed up. Now it'll be pretty straightforward on being able to repair at least the wheels portion of it. So there you see where I ended up with the Redlines. And then much like the last build, I thought, well, let me give this rub and buff another shot here. And it's obviously a plastic base, and Redlines would have had a metal base. And this rub and buff, as you see, I'm using gloves here. It isn't the neatest thing in the world, but I really like the look of the results. I'm very pleased with it. The application's fairly easy, and the result, I think, looks very, very much like a metal base. And you can see it over there on the left. You'll notice that after filing the holes in the casting, now those engine chunks just drop right in. Well, when I'm not having a brain fart like I did here, I'm not sure what I was thinking there. It's like, well, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They go through the hole in the side. You know, when you're not doing this stuff on camera, it goes a lot more easily. There's something about as you're filming it, you're conscious of so many other things that it's very easy to have a brain fart like that. So pop the metallic now plastic base on there. Take a look at it to make sure it fits. Everything's looking good. And again, those were the self-tapping screws. I finally found a magnet to throw on the side of the screwdriver there, which for these Phillips head screws really comes in handy, because you don't realize how small those screws are until you're fumbling around trying to get them into a casting. So there it is, all put together. The second in the series. The last one will be for the National Redline Day build coming up on May 18th. So there you see where we started. A twin mill leaving a lot to be desired. Yeah, and those final fight 4 Tampos. They had to go. And you'll see where we ended up here in a second. I think it looks much better as a Redline. Again, that's the metal cast red paint, and coated with the Minwax polyurethane gloss clear. I hope you like how this one turned out. And again, this is the second in the series of 3 that I'll be doing. The first one, the earlier video, was the Twin Mill 3 that I absolutely love the looks of that casting. And this is the Twin Mill 2. And the final build in the Twins or Triplets series will be the original Twin Mill, like was out when I was a little kid. Again, I hope you like this build. Thank you for watching these videos. And we have some glamour shots coming up. The metal cast paint is tough to beat. I'd also like to take a moment to thank my Patreon supporters. Thanks to their help, I'm able to get some things for these videos that maybe otherwise I'd have a tough time justifying. And there they are. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there. I'll catch you in the next one.